The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors:
Sorinex Exercise Equipment, Samson Exercise Equipment, Intech Strength, Iron Grip Barbell Company, Train Heroic, Gym Aware, Woodway, Versa Pulley. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast.
Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery's straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and this is episode number 190. Excited to have Dave Hembrough with us. Dave is the lead strength and conditioning coach for the Center for Sport and Exercise Science at Sheffield Hallam University over in the UK. He's part of England Volleyball. He runs the Hallam Barbell Club. Got the chance to meet him several years back when I spoke at the UK SEA, and then again recently when I spoke over in London and got to watch his presentation. And after listening to it, just having a handful of conversations, I had to have him on the show. Glad I did. This episode you're going to get a lot out of. We talked quite a bit about his performance consultancy program. And I talk about this on the show quite often about making your own opportunities, not waiting for things to fall in your lap. And, he was the first strength coach at Sheffield Hallam. To do that, he has to go out and create income to support his position, to support his program. And he's created a lot of these different programs that have all been very successful. He's put it in a situation where he's created the job that he wants for himself there. But more importantly, he's also done it in a way where he's continually giving back to the community through Strong Saturdays that he runs. He runs a female-only program, a mountain biking program. There's a lot of different things that he's just listened to the community, to the university, on top of running all their athletes through. And so it's a really unique story. I know that you're going to get a ton out of it. We share a lot of the same values and beliefs when it comes to the impact that the weight room can have. And so this is just a great episode. Before we do, though, I want to recognize our sponsor for this episode, new sponsor for this year, Samson Barbell Equipment. And, I'm real excited about Samson being on board. It fits really, really well with our mission, what we're trying to do, the type of company that we are. They are a family-owned business. Started the company in 1976, the year I was born, and has built it into a great company. Samson and Sorinex both are sponsors. They're both family-owned businesses. Play is a family-owned business. Brett's family has been in the flooring company for decades. And, like I said, it just fits the mission really well. And more importantly, they do things like, just recently they outfitted a weight room for the Cotton Bowl. And they donated all the equipment that was used there to a local high school in Dallas, Texas. And again, just when we talk about the big picture, giving back to the strength and conditioning community, they provided a great resource there for those strength coaches that were coming down in the bowl game. They didn't have to load up a bunch of equipment, but not only that, they turned around and donated that equipment to a needy, a program in need there in the area. And again, I think it just fits with what we're doing. Super excited to have them involved. Super excited to getting some of their equipment in my garage and going to be playing with. And really, really excited about Samson being a part of our sponsorship program this year. So make sure you check them out. Go, like them on Facebook or Twitter. Follow them on YouTube. And make sure that you just, when you see them at the next conference or online, that you're thanking them for being a part of Iron Game Chalk Talk and it coming to you for free. So want to get to this episode with Dave. Sit back and enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. Excited to have Dave Hembrough with us. Dave is the lead strength coach for Sheffield Hallam University. Hallam or Hallam University?
Hallam, yeah,
Hallam.
Sheffield Hallam.
And we first met back at the UKSEA, but then again reconnected at Brendan Chaplin's conference over in London and Nottingham, and just really, really impressed by his presentation, really impressed by him, and I wanted to have him on the show. So thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be on the show. I'm a big fan, listen to your podcast regularly. It's nice to be here and be able to share my story with you and your listeners.
I appreciate that, man. Well, let's jump into that. What tell us a little bit, just Reader's Digest version, kind of how you got into strength and conditioning and what led you to what we're going to talk about here, about 90 different things there at Sheffield.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm, as you say, at Sheffield Hallam. That's a university in the north of England. I'm the lead strength and conditioning coach there. My role is actually a sports science role in a research centre, but I'm very much in an applied context. And I've been doing a full-time role for over 10 years now, so I feel really lucky and privileged to be paid to do what we love. Back in the day, it started out like many of us playing sport. I was a rugby player growing up, did a lot of martial arts, and started lifting weights at the age of 13, 14. I grew up in the country, in Devon, which is the southwest of the UK. Not a lot to do, and lifting weights, playing rugby was a big part of my development. Back end of my teenage years, coming to Sheffield, moving out of the country to do my degree. I did an undergraduate master's in sports science, and I did a master's in sports science and rehabilitation. So I sort of carried through the academic side of all my development and learning. All the meanwhile, I was lifting weights, working in the gym, playing sport, and I found a lot of the sports science, a lot of the academic stuff that I was being shown in the classroom. It didn't really link up as well as I'd like with the practical stuff I did in my own sport, my own training. And as I started to work in the gym and train other athletes, trying to link the practicalities in the weights room and working with people and coaching towards the text and the academic literature and the information I was getting from the classroom. That's where the big scratch in my head and the puzzles I started to untangle. Really sort of got strength and conditioning as a profession into my mind and under my skin.
It's oftentimes the journey, right? You're an athlete. You try to, you like lifting weights. You naturally start teaching people how to lift weights, and then all you do is kind of study lifting weights. And obviously, you took it a lot further with getting advanced degrees and things along those lines. But really, what was the reason that you wanted to? Because I think we share, I know we share a similar approach in that the strength and conditioning and impacting young people is the ultimate motivation. And I know that there was probably a story or some reason why you felt like strength and conditioning was this more noble cause, more noble than just teaching people to lift weights. In your background, and then you're doing that on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. Big belief of mine is that we as coaches are responsible for the people in front of us, and that we've got the opportunity to help them in a wider remit than just being physically better and playing at a higher level or running faster, jumping higher. And part of my role at the university is working for an athlete program called TAS, Talented Athlete Scholarship Scheme. It's a national program which gives a foot in the door really for young performers who are talent ID'd or potential for elite sport in the future. And the athletes might have been talented and they might have been successful in perhaps wide-reaching minority sports, that they weren't always the smartest or the most mature emotionally or personally. Often I think with young athletes, they're early developers, or they're talented in a small talent pool, and that doesn't carry them all the way. And what I was finding was, as I was trying to coach these young athletes and develop them, the problems that I was facing in a coach and their limiting factor, it was bigger picture things. It was how they organised and applied themselves in their life, and how they managed their relationships, and how in university, as a young person, there's a lot of distractions. And for a while, I was looking around and I was frustrated with the athletes who were in front of me, and I was blaming a lot of them for being poor. And I remember a day thinking that, all these guys aren't great athletes. And there was a sort of pivotal moment where I thought, hang on, well, am I coaching them correctly? Are they poor athletes, or am I coaching them in a way which isn't right for them? And I sort of turned the finger on myself and looked at a lot of the ways in which I did things and the way I tried to engage and get buy-in and gain understanding of the person in front of me and build the relationship. I realized I was driving them to lift heavier weights and run higher, jump fast, run faster, jump higher, where actually they had bigger frustrations in their life, and that my role as a coach was to help them with that. That was a big learning point for me. As a student, I was very distracted socially. I wasn't a great student. I was never a great athlete. And as a young man, as I started to understand myself and recognize sort of my role in the world and the place that I fitted in, some of those lessons, I think, as coaches, we can share the things that we've been through with other people. So yeah, a big part of me and my coaching is just helping people be better people. And if that doesn't ultimately turn them into a A-class athlete, but leaves them with a better outlook and a better understanding of themselves and how they can manage their relationships, I think that's massively important. Because let's face it, a lot of athletes or young talented people who are good at sport, they don't make it. They've got other things to do. And if we can help them do that and leave them in a better state, mentally, emotionally, as well as physically, I think that's massively important.
No question. I mean, I know for myself and many coaches that are listening, I mean, essentially sport raised us in some capacity, and unfortunately the athletes that we're dealing with even more, nowadays are coming from broken homes, and they're not getting great examples of how to live their lives. And I just think that there's so much, I call it, a laboratory for life. There's so many opportunities in the weight room for you to learn the lessons that are going to make you successful in life, teamwork and coming in with a plan and fighting through adversity, and all the things that are things that are naturally occurring in the weight room are going to be things that can teach you life lessons down the line. And so much of what we do, if we don't address the things that are outside of the weight room, then we're fighting that losing battle every time they walk into the weight room. I tell them that, our athletes all the time, they have 22 hours to mess up everything we just did. So if we have a great session, they go out and they get 2 Big Macs from McDonald's. I mean, they just ruined, what we did. If they don't sleep right, if they don't live right, and I don't personally like fighting a losing battle. And so I think that we have an obligation there. And I know a lot of strength coaches, they'll disagree with me maybe, but writing a workout, that's the easy part. It's not rocket science. I mean, it's, lift more weight, or do more reps, or lift it faster. I mean, that's essentially how you get stronger, but the hard part is getting them to buy into you, getting them to buy into your program, getting them to live right outside of the weight room and all those things. And you do that so well. I think, one of the things that I was so impressed with you is, you meet the athletes where they're at, and in a variety of different ways. I mean, you have a strong Saturdays, and you have, a power bell for your female athletes. You have a boxing program. You have a barbell program. You're not just doing that to benefit your athletes, but you're also doing it to benefit your coaches as well. Talk a little bit about these performance consultancy programs that you have and kind of how they came to be.
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What I do in Sheffield and at Sheffield Hallam University is much broader and wider than sport and performance. Big challenge for me in my role at the university, and perhaps fairly uniquely, I'm not so sure, is that as a consultant to the university, my job essentially is to hit an income target. And in performance sport, often we're tasked with making an athlete better, to help them on a match day, or to change the numbers over time. For me, at basic, I've got to validate my salary, the employment that I'm fortunate enough to have by bringing in money. And, as a young man, I was very excited to get this job, and my eyes were sort of opened over the first year or two in the role to figure out actually my employment wasn't just about coaching and delivering programs. It was about validating my existence and ensuring I had a secure future. And I very quickly figured out that an hourly rate didn't cut it, or some basic contracts with a number of professional teams, or some internal work within the university. It was hard yards to hit my targets financially, and it was also going to be long days and busy weekends. And we were fortunate enough to have a big investment at the university to have a new facility. It was a £100,000 spend, which is very, very big for the UK, perhaps not so huge for the US, but we were one of the first, I think, UK universities to have a multiple rack and platform S&C facility, a bespoke strength and conditioning facility, not a member program that was open. And we had a great gym, but we didn't have a staff budget. And so I was scratching my head at how we could combine. And so that's the start of the internship program I ran. And it was perhaps back in the day before interns were a well sort of accepted or a common thing. And over time, I've developed an internship program at Sheffield Hallam, where we have a number of students coming through in an undergraduate or a postgraduate capacity, some voluntarily, some paid. And we've got a fantastic program where we've got perhaps 500 or 600 athletes in the collegiate system coming through every week. I've got 40 junior interns who are in undergraduate, perhaps working 4 to 8 hours a week voluntarily for me. And we've got a couple of part-time employed guys. The part-time employed, the senior interns, we pay them a salary, we pay their master's fees, or at least we used to. That's changed slightly recently. And then we've got a full-time guy, Andy Langford, who he studied in the States. He was on a basketball scholarship. I think Andy's probably one of the few guys in the UK university system that actually studied in the American collegiate system, and he's brought the collegiate model to the UK. Wow. So again, we're pretty unique for the fact that his experience allows us to reflect the programs that you're very familiar with in the US. Sure. So we had a great internship program. I was developing some young practitioners that were figuring it out, finding their way. And these guys were good. But university sport wasn't the be-all and end-all. I found that there was other people in the community that were either playing sport or wanted to be fit and healthy, wanted to weightlift, wanted to do strongman or do powerlifting. And as my coaches came through the intern program, I found they all had different interests or different sort of connections in the community. One girl, Adela, she was a mountain biker. She competed internationally, and she'd come through the system we run, and she said she wanted to start a program for mountain bikers. Well, at the time, I'd been training a local guy, Steve Peat. Steve, in my first year of training him, became the world champion. I think that was fortunate of my situation, not the impact of my program. So we set a mountain bike program up off the back of Adela's contacts in the community and me training a world champion at the time. And that was 5 years ago. That program still runs. We get 80 mountain bikers a week coming through, 2 or 3 sessions, wow. who are be there, and we're doing good with them and training them well. So we call that Blue Steel, which I thought originally was a mountain bike term, but it relates to Zoolander. Nothing to do. But Adela and Blue Steel are an example of the performance consultancy program that we run. And we've got several others where young people have come through a voluntary internship program, developed as coaches. They have an interest, a passion, maybe a niche in a certain area or a sport. And I've supported them and guided them to develop and set up a little program focusing on boxing or weightlifting or strongman. We've got a number of different little clusters, all of which turn over good money. And allow me to pay my practitioners who are no longer interns. They're paid practitioners in their own right. And it also allows us to offer services to the community at a very affordable price that brings people from the community into the university, into our great facilities, and have a great experience understanding strength and conditioning, whether that's for sport or whether that's for general life. An example of sort of one that's not sport specific is a program called Powerbell. Powerbell's on a Monday evening. Siobhan Holdridge runs that. She's competed at weightlifting from my Hallam Barbell program, and she's competed at strong women. But she runs Powerbell, and we have women coming in from different ages, different walks of life, being trained in strength training by other women. And so it's a Powerbell program for women who want to get the benefits from having strength in their life delivered by other women. And it's really, really powerful. You go in there and there's a real crackle to the environment for the fact these women are really empowered and they're exploring strength and feeling the benefits. And one of the things about strength is we can get better at it very quickly, particularly if you start from a poor base. Right. And one of the things I do with all of these programs is that we celebrate the success of hard work and improvement. And we can get someone strong pretty quick. So they all work hard, they celebrate success, and they do good things together. So that's the performance consultancy program that was born out of the internship scheme that we run here. There's lots of little examples. I don't know if there's any others you want me to sort of dig into or go through.
Yeah, there's actually, I want to get into a couple, but there's lots of things to dig into that. I think that are potential takeaways for the listeners. One, the internship and staffing. Were you the first strength coach at Sheffield Hallam?
Yeah, that's right, pretty much.
So
when I started, strength and conditioning wasn't a phrase,
Yeah.
It was just an addition to what athletes did. Do you remember those days? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I think that's I did very similar. At the University of South Florida, I came in and my first year I was paid $9,000. And I think that's a lot of young coaches that are listening, or coaches in general. They're waiting for opportunities to fall in their lap instead of going out and actually going after and creating them. And I think that there's still plenty of colleges in the United States that don't have strength coaches. There's still there's numerous high schools around the world, and colleges around the world that don't have strength coaches. And so going in and pitching a consultancy program like this could be a way to get your foot in the door really quick with the university. But it's also, you can all of a sudden you're a head strength coach right away. There's lots of opportunities there if you have a little bit of an entrepreneurial type of spirit, and I think there's so much, there's a lot of coaches that are also listening that, that are throwing their hands up with the fact that their administration hasn't given them staff when you went out and created these programs, and by creating these programs, it created staff. How do you manage the scheduling part of that? There's 500 athletes, you said, in the university. Now you got all these different programs going on. How do you manage the scheduling of that from a day to day?
Sure. So it's been pretty organic, and we problem solved as we've gone along, and programs have sort of evolved and taken different shape and form at different times. There's been significant change in the last 2 or 3 years. The program's grown, had more finance, had more support with staff members. Andy Langford, the lead S&C, who's full-time in the student facility, he looks after a lot of the delivery and scheduling. He manages some staff and delivers a great program. Like I said, he studied in the States, so he knows the ways you guys do things over there. And
sure.
He was on the reception end of that and interned for a few years too. But essentially we've got a dozen sports or so, not just the traditional sports. We've got korfball. Korfball's a mix between sort of basketball and netball. It's another basket sport. People have, but we've got strength and conditioning programs for korfball or ultimate frisbee, which isn't big over here, as well as the football, the cricket, the rugby, the swimming. So these programs in Sheffield that we run, the athletes have to pay for a membership.
Okay.
It's not free. We do run scholarship programs at the university for a small number of athletes and a small number of focus teams. But on the whole, it's a membership-based program that people pay to be part of. Well, that obviously brings some income and allows us to argue to develop it and grow it and resource it. So if you, for example, were on one of our sports teams, say a hockey team, field hockey team, you'd come into up to 2 sessions a week. Those would be supervised by one of our paid interns, one of our senior interns.
Right.
Have a number of junior interns that sit underneath him or her. So we've got perhaps 2 or 3 sessions a week for each team. We've got a very full schedule. We're open 80 hours a week, and most of those hours we've got different teams coming in who are all supervised by the same person or the same faces on a week-to-week basis. By way of programming, it's pretty simple. Collegiate strength and conditioning. It's basic bang for the buck, simple, block by block. Bits and pieces, and like we said earlier, it's easy to make a big difference fairly quickly.
Right.
With a good program and the right work ethic.
Sure.
Does that help to sort of the information you were after there?
Yeah, I think the one thing that you have 2 different weight rooms. Is that correct?
3. We're pushing enough to have 3 different spaces. Yeah.
Okay, so that helps out with the scheduling piece of it. I got you. I think the other thing to pull out of there is the opportunity that you have as a professional in a community to make a community-wide impact as opposed to just a university impact. I would imagine, not knowing exactly the situation, but I would imagine that some of the contacts that you've made through some of these programs have benefited you somehow, some way. in your current position, and I think that that's another opportunity that coaches might miss is they look at it as additional work, they look at it as additional problems or whatever it may be, but there's probably lots of relationships that have been formed and lives that have been changed in the community that you've made your position probably more secure by having those relationships and providing those programs. Talk a little bit about how you went about, setting some of those up, and maybe some of the examples of how that's benefited you in your program.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That there's a wide and broad network that I've created. I've been lucky enough to be part of, but that's perhaps been created by me asking the right questions and being personable and going out of my way to make relationships. And you talked earlier about sort of coaches who are developing and perhaps frustrated they've not got the opportunities. And it's going to be very much about how we can help. It's not about what we want to do or how we want to oppose ourselves in an athlete program or what sort of training style we're passionate about. It's got to start with how can we help. So some of the guys listening, if there's a college or a school who perhaps don't have an employed S&C coach, go in and don't pitch about what you want to do. Go and dig and find the school or the coach's frustrations and challenges and problems, right, and help them solve those. Because if we can do that, we validate ourselves and our existence through healing the pain of someone that's in front of us. Not about going in and being egocentric and saying, I'm this, I'm that, we can do this, I can achieve that. So in terms of coaching with different groups of athletes, very quickly, I found it was very important to share my thoughts and observations and ask for input. Quite often we can create a scenario with medical staff or sports staff where we're fighting slightly different agendas. And if you actually ask questions and work in a certain way and ask people for information to help inform your perspective and your view, your worldview of where you're at and what's going on with the athletes around you, it gets people on side rather than offside. Right. It's easy to break relationships. It's much easier to break relationships than to make them if you take the wrong approach. So right from the start, I was always very interested in what other people thought, and to help that match up to where my ideas were, I was always very open to suggestion and critique or alternative thinking. We talked previously about weightlifting and the technicalities of weightlifting, and it's not black and white. There's not right or wrong. There's many, many different ways to go about it. Mm-hmm. And I've really enjoyed coming across someone that does something different to me or values something that I've not valued, because it lets me sort of analyze and have a little look at, what am I doing and why is it that they're doing something different? What can I learn? What opportunities come from that? So that's growth mindset essentially, isn't it? Being very to challenge and critique and not being scared by people doing something different.
Well, I think, like you said, listening and finding people's pain points. I mean, there's so much opportunity in just that in and of itself. But I think the other thing that I think is an obligation that we have as educated as leaders in our space and strength and conditioning and fitness and exercise is, we should be the ones that are putting out the information. We should be the ones that are putting on the programs, and not the personal trainer that just had the weekend certification that didn't have the advanced training. I think that's an obligation we have, and I think you're doing that in a lot of these programs, and you're providing this resource, which comes back tenfold in a lot of ways. But one of the programs that I was really impressed with was your Strong Saturdays. You'd sent me a video documentary. We'll try to link up with this as well. But just how much of an impact that's had on the people that are in the program, the coach that's coaching it, and just what you've been able to do with that. Talk a little bit about that program and how that came to be.
Yeah, Strong Saturdays. It's fantastic. Some of the benefit and the work that it's doing in the community and the difference it's making in people's lives. But first of all, my advice would be, if you're ever going to name a program, don't name it around the day in which it takes place, because it becomes very quick a limiting factor. Strong Saturdays. It was a strongman open training session Saturday afternoons. We deliver on other days of the week. and we're still trying to figure out what to call that.
Right.
But yes, Saturdays it was off the back of some of the guys that I work with and some of my friends that I've trained with moving towards strongman. I was purchasing some equipment, and a very good friend of mine, Chris Fitzgerald, who is a sociologist, so someone in a very different sort of walk of life from a lot of my academic friends in, biomechanics or psychology or, physiology and strength and conditioning. And so Chris and I always used to like to have a drink, and I like to listen to his sort of views on the world. And he had different views. He had things that were new to me that I found were massively important, that were off my radar as a coach, and things that I hadn't really sort of been able to come across. And so he taught me a lot of things. One of the things that he taught me was Plato's algorithm, known as Plato's cave. Yeah. I don't know whether you've ever come across it.
I have.
But phenomenal about the environment and culture and how that changes your perception and understanding of everything that's around you. I won't go into it now and tell the story, but for your listeners, type in Plato's cave or Plato's algorithm and have a look at that. There's a couple of very nice summary clips on YouTube. But yeah, out of interest, it's also the basis of the story of The Matrix, which if you're a fan of films, you'll love The Matrix.
Right.
So have a look at Plato's cave and that. So Chris, with a slightly alternative worldview, went in to do his PhD and the use of exercise as an intervention in drug rehabilitation. He and I were lifting weights together, and he and I sort of put a program together where we went to a local organization, Phoenix House, which is a residential drug rehabilitation program where people from very, very difficult backgrounds and who have very difficult life situations spend 6 months basically sorting their life out. And he was part of his PhD, offered some circuit training classes, and took some people who weren't very fit, didn't have a lot of physical confidence, didn't have any physical strength, very, very poor nutritional backgrounds. These guys, if they had any money, they wouldn't be spending it on, fruit and veg. Right. And we gave them the gift of exercise, and we saw them start to understand and apply themselves physically and feel the benefit from it. Guys that came through the basic circuit program, we were lucky enough to be able to provide them a free gym membership for those that just wanted to work out in a gym environment, or we offered them the chance to come and be part of the Strong Saturday program, the strongman and powerlifting program that we run. So we've had several of the Phoenix House rehab guys come through now and compete with us at Strongman. We've had a couple of them come through and have got qualifications in health and fitness, gym qualifications. One of which, the star of the video, which I shared with you, and hopefully you can still share through this podcast, Steve, he started smoking crack cocaine at 13 years old. He's 30 now, and he's been through a very difficult number of years, and he's come through the other side. And we were able to get him some funding and get him on a qualification. I said to him after he was qualified, I said, Steve, how was that? Was it difficult? He said, yeah, Dave, it was really tough. Really, really hard. I said, mate, when was the last time you've done a qualification? He said, never.
Right.
It's the first qualification that he's had. It gives him legitimacy. It gives him confidence in himself, and it now gives him perhaps a way to earn some money. And there's many, many good things in there that comes from a program like that. So yeah, that's Strong Saturdays. We're working with Paul Smith, who's one of our coaches. Paul's just become England's strongest man. He is world number 2 under 23 junior strongest man as well.
Wow.
Phenomenally strong. Dan Baker was in Sheffield before Christmas and did some of his push velocity-based training workshops. And Paul broke a lot of the world records that Dan had seen on the push band.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, yeah. Well, he deadlifts 360, he overhead presses 180. He's a strong guy.
Right.
That always helps as well, doesn't it? To have someone who's immensely strong. It makes everyone else feel like they've got a lot more work to do.
Absolutely. And it helps as coaches too. I think a lot of times it's one of the things I talk about is making sure you hire different people other than you. I mean, I'm a strong guy, you're a strong guy, but that guy's another level of strong. And being able to point to somebody like that as an example for athletes. Sometimes I don't care how we reach them as long as we reach them. And so sometimes it's a vanity type of thing. Sometimes it's a size type of thing. Sometimes it's a race type of thing. that athletes identify with better, we have an obligation to surround ourselves with people that are going to be able to reach our athletes somehow, some way. But, one of the other things we talked about at the conference that we both share is the opportunity there is with our youth, and you talked about some programs that are coming about through the government. You talked about some different things, opportunities within youth training. Talk about the opportunity that lies there for strength and conditioning coaches that are listening.
Yeah, so in the UK at the moment, there's a massive shift of attention and funding within physical activity, within health, and particularly within sport, of using sport as a vehicle for social change, and having positive return on the investment for sport. Mm-hmm. Not for performance purpose, but for helping people be fit and healthy. And if I'm honest, I think the focus of being fit and healthy in the past is missed sport. It's always been about exercise, or it's been about getting off the bus a stop early, or taking the stairs rather than an escalator. And that doesn't cut it for me, Right. What we do as strength coaches is offer a very accessible way for people who are unfit and perhaps overweight or have issues with certain diseases, a very accessible way to improve their cardiovascular and metabolic health. So you pick a barbell up or a dumbbell, or you manage your own body mass in a structured way, and we know that's got a multitude of benefits. And so, yeah, you're right. Young people are obviously a focus group within that, and there's big opportunity, I think, in the future for funding locally and nationally. For people that are doing good things for disadvantaged or the elderly, or people who have perhaps got social challenges. And I feel as a coach that's what it's about to me, helping people in a positive way. And some young people might come through the programs that you run and go on to be great athletes. If that happens, fantastic. But there's many more things that we can offer by getting some people in a room, by helping them train hard and celebrate improvement and success, and having positive peer groups.
Agreed.
I said to you before, Ronnie, I've been to the Olympics and I've coached at international level. I've been part of squads that have won medals at Commonwealth Games, and I found that a very enjoyable experience. But the satisfaction I get from seeing a sparkle in someone's eye who has perhaps had a difficult upbringing or has been disadvantaged in whatever way, and seeing that make a difference for them as they squat their own new record, or they gain confidence or gain some sort of social identity through being in the weight room. That's the important stuff, it really is.
Right. No, I couldn't agree with you more. That was a lesson that I learned. I would love to say I learned it coaching, but I didn't really learn that lesson until I had kids, and had, two kids that don't really do sports, and so, all those lessons when we go out, we work out in the garage or whatever, those things still carry over into their daily lives, despite not playing high level sports, which is kind of what I've been around my whole life. And, and so I agree with you 100%. I think those life lessons that can be taught through, strength and conditioning, through what we do. We just sat down and just did a goal setting session with my kids, just right before the new year, just as if I was going through and sitting down and setting goals with my athletes, and there's so many things that can be carried over into daily walks of life that would make this world a much better place, in my opinion. And I appreciate what you guys are doing there, because with all those programs, you're definitely making an impact. We end the show, Dave, with some resources. Give us the biggest mistake you've made and how you learned from it.
The mistakes question. Many along the way, I'm sure. I think the take-home message from today, by way of mistakes, is it's not about you as a coach; it's about the person in front of you, and it's not about chasing numbers and a rapid sort of turnaround. It's about having a lasting effect.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you can sacrifice a few sets or an exercise or two in someone's session for the fact that you can take a bit of time out and get to know them a little bit more, or if you see someone sort of struggling with something that's perhaps more important than training on that day, if you're in a position where you're able to and it's appropriate to support them with that, that's the way you need to go. So I think many sort of times that I chase getting someone stronger as a priority, but building the relationship's the important point. So guys, if you're out there and you're training people, don't make the mistake of sacrificing a relationship for a couple of extra sets, because one's much more important and has got more lasting direction.
What's the best piece of coaching advice you ever received?
Best piece of coaching advice? I was working in a professional rugby contract, Rotherham Titans, and it's a sort of professional, semi-pro environment. Not your ideal aspirational athletes. Some of them are coming back down who have been at the top, others that are trying to make it. Many that are just sort of floating in the sort of like semi-pro athletic, status. And the bit of advice was that the squeaky gate gets the oil. And I didn't quite know what that meant at first. And it was an assistant coach. He was sort of volunteer, and he was a guy that I hadn't really paid much time and attention towards. And he just sort of put my hand in passing and said, "Dave, squeaky gate gets the oil." And what he meant by that was that I was chasing a lot of people in that squad that perhaps weren't buying into my program and weren't listening to me as a coach. And those that were, and those that were driven and really wanting to be successful and do the things that I was prescribing, I wasn't rewarding them with my time. I was chasing those that weren't interested.
Right.
And so that was a great coaching lesson. And for those that aren't interested, don't chase them. Don't waste your time. Reward those that are buying into your program, and let those that aren't either drift away or in their own time come to you.
Right. Being consistent. Most of the time, my experience has been those athletes that don't buy in right away. They're either they're hard to they have a hard time trusting, or they want to see consistency by you first. And so if you're consistent with the core group, a lot of times they'll buy in naturally. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. What about a book, app, website recommendation? You had some good ones.
Yeah, book, app, and website. A book, and I sent this to you previously as well as a personal recommendation. What a fantastic book. It's called The Success System That Never Fails. Now, it's a bit of a cheesy title, but it's a fabulous book. And it's a very, very old book as well. It's from something like 1962. And it's by a guy called William Clement Stone. And I don't know if any of your listeners will remember an insurance program, a health insurance program called Combined Insurance of America, something like that. He was the starting guy of this company, the CEO of the company, and it's his story pretty much, and how he matured as a young man, as a salesman, found his place in the world, how he dealt with challenges in growing a company. He was a religious man, and that comes into the book a little bit about belief and prayer, and how he sort of applied himself with a higher purpose, belief. But as I read the book, there's so many take-home messages in that. And I didn't know in reading the book that he actually hung out with Dale Carnegie, who wrote How to Influence People.
Yeah.
They did a number of success summits and success seminars in like the late 1940s. So there's some great publications around now, but this is something that perhaps comes from a time before all the complications of the internet and Facebook and social media distraction.
That's good.
Look, I'd encourage your readers, your listeners, to get stuck into that.
Yeah, no, I added it to my Amazon list. I couldn't find a used copy yet, so but got it on the list. What about an app and a website?
Sure. An app. Very quickly, is an app I use called Pocket. Pocket's a simple app which allows you to store a website. So if you've got a website or an article, a document online, it's a very easy way to store and reference those. And it's something that I scour and search for information. I've got a very wide remit of interest, and this is just somewhere that's as a receptacle that I collect and store everything. The website, something a little bit different, is my mind's gone blank. It's a website where a lady reads a lot of books, and she gives summaries of books, but it's perhaps not strength and conditioning, it's not sport and exercise, it's more philosophical and sort of life learnings. So it's called Brain Pickings, brainpickings.org, I believe. And she's got a mail list, and you can sign up to that. And it's a little bit out there. Perhaps it's for people who are a bit more, I don't know, emotionally intelligent or personally sort of developed past, reading the basic sports science text. It's pretty challenging. But for me, where I'm at, it's got a lot of great information, and I've picked a lot of good stories and good book recommendations from that. So have a look at that. That's brainpickings.org.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. Well, man, one of the coolest things about this podcast is the opportunity to be able to talk to coaches around the world and just have a great conversation and talk shop and find people that have mutual interest and doing it the right way. And you're definitely doing that, man. So really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing. Really appreciate the presentation that I saw from you, and would encourage everybody to make sure they reach out to you and follow you, because you're doing some fantastic stuff, man. Appreciate you so much.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. It's great to be able to just share some of the cool things we've got going on in Sheffield. And as you say, if anyone wants to reach out, I'm on Twitter, DW Hembrough. Get in touch. Something I'm looking at running in 2017 is some open days where people can come and drop in and hang out with us. We get a lot of requests for that, so we're going to put on some events where people can come and have a couple of days with us and watch some of the programs that we run, whether that's sport and performance or the health and wellness side of things. Perhaps meet the athletes or the people within those programs, train as a group, and have some conversations with the coaches and the sports coaches and the teams that we work with too. So if people are interested in that, there'll be some information bouncing around at some point soon.
That's great, man. Well, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Great. Cheers, Ron. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out ronmckeefery.com, where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.